Hello, and welcome. I've got Ben Chambers here, but unfortunately,
they know by now
we can listen, but we can't see.
In
We can't see the stream.
The
We can't
80th
see it.
anniversary of
This is
D-Day.
what we're seeing.
That was the date.
So
the
if
party
someone else
offered
can
to
find
record
me
our
the
interview.
stream on YouTube or something and put the link into the chat, I will be eternally grateful, because otherwise we're just going to be sitting here listening in like a pair of weirdos. Me and Ben Chambers here from 16 million rising.
Hello. You know, considering what's happened in Ukraine.
Yeah, which I haven't seen President Biden's remarks, but
He's not
that's
seen
kind of the
the president's remarks there.
Did you get to meet any of the veterans? Or
It's going to be like listening to the radio.
ceremonial.
Lots over yesterday.
You can't watch it.
Yeah, I've already spoke to almost everyone that was there, I hope.
Just turn the sound up a
That
bit.
morning, Rishi Sunak was at a British ceremony in France, honouring the sacrifice of D-Day veterans.
He was, wasn't he?
I'm no hero, they will say. I just did my duty. That humility is so much a part of why they are truly the best of us.
But instead of staying to meet other world leaders, he flew home, leaving a former British Prime Minister to take the place of the current one. Unaware of the outrage that decision was about to elicit.
The Prime Minister is forced to apologise after leaving D-Day commemorations early.
And I think it's
Daniel W saying unprofessional.
disgusting.
It's unprofessional.
The itinerary for these
ITV
events was set weeks
to just be
ago
showing this to
before
us.
the start of the general election campaign.
Their
I
copyright
returned
protection.
home before the International Leaders event later in the day. On reflection, that was a mistake, and I apologise.
Rishi Sunak was born in Southampton in 1980 to a pharmacist mum and a GP dad.
No.
From his comfortable home in the
know that?
suburbs,
No, yes.
he often visited St Mary's,
They mention
home
it
of his much-loved
again and
Southampton FC.
Hi, how are you guys?
How
are you? I'm Rishi.
How are you guys?
Very nice to meet you. Hello. You know, I've always wanted to do
Right,
this
time to meet
when I
Rishi
was your
Sunak.
age, and I never was able to. So I'm very jealous.
I think that often Rishi Sunak is
Katie Bowles. This is
spoken of
Katie
this,
Bowles
from
speaking.
this billionaire family.
writes-
Of course,
he
he
writes
came
for
from
The
slightly more
Spectator.
humble beginnings. He loves to say, that his mother was a pharmacist, but he worked in that shop and things.
In his teens, he took his first steps away from that relatively ordinary life towards what would become an extraordinary one.
He
Thanks very
went
much to
Winchester, one of the
Tripod
elite private
9000
schools
for
in
the
the
super
UK,
chat. That's really
where
kind.
he
Thank
became
you.
head boy. He then went on to Oxford to do PPE and politics, philosophy and economics, this degree that so many Tory politicians did.
He later earned a master's degree from Stanford University in California, where he met his wife, Akshata Murthy, daughter of an Indian tech billionaire. The couple now have 2 daughters of their own.
He went into finance, and in particular a hedge fund. The sort of risky end, if you like, of the financial sector.
It was only a decade ago that Sunak chose to leave his lucrative career in finance to enter politics at the very bottom.
I first met Rishi
At the
Sunak
very
when I was
bottom.
Education Secretary.
Oh God,
and I heard
this
that there's
Gove talking now.
this amazing young guy who's been really successful in the city, but who's working in this think tank basically as the most junior researcher. And he was there just basically laying out the chairs.
In the 2015 election, he
What
was
was that
selected for the
about?
safe seat of
was
Richmond
laying out
in
the chairs.
Yorkshire,
That was his
vacated
job
by
then.
former Conservative
Well,
Party
he
leader
started
William
at the bottom
Hague,
and worked his
and
way
he
up.
won with ease. Kevin Hollinrake
Graf
took
that's
the
got him where he is
constituency
today.
next door.
I think people's impression of Rishi
Inspiration
is
to us
formed
all,
very
I think.
quickly, in
He
the same way
can do
mine
it.
was formed quickly, is this person's going places, this person's
should turn the
a
monitor
step
around
above, a cut
and then
above
you
what
can
you
have it.
normally
Is that
expect
Jack
from-
Meadows from The
from a
Bill?
new
Remember The Bill?
member of Parliament.
It is.
Barely a year later,
Oh, right.
Sunak made a bold gamble,
see us.
throwing his weight behind the Leave campaign, and then behind its most vocal supporter, Boris Johnson.
When the Brexit referendum came, he followed his heart, and he put his career on the line by saying, this is a big
Govey,
question about the
top,
future of this
mad,
country,
sorted.
and I believe this country would be better off if
Ease
we
and
were in
whiz.
control of our destiny.
That bet paid off when Johnson fell out with his first Chancellor, Sajid Javid, and gave the job to Javid's junior, Rishi Sunak.
This is only a half-hour interview.
And they're just filling, it's all
There's
filler.
filling.
It's all this
It's
sort
all
of
filler, no filler.
That is a good way to get along.
This is
The
Stephen
second
Bush,
is
who's the
that
associate
Conservative
editor of the
Party
Financial Times.
did really want to diversify its top ranks. And so when you have someone bright, polite and qualified, and from an ethnic minority, they are going to rise pretty quickly in the modern Conservative Party.
I'm hearing too much of his suit moving there.
I must give the British people a very simple instruction. You must stay at home.
To rescue the economy during COVID, Sunak placed the mother of all wagers, £70 billion on untested schemes like furlough.
I remember interviewing Rishi Sunak quite soon after the pandemic, when some things had opened up, and I said to him, you have borrowed more than Gordon Brown at this point, and he looked truly horrified. And I think that does show that while he was enacting some of these policies, it probably was quite away from the fiscal Conservative he is deep down.
After the turmoil of Partygate, for which Sunak was himself fined £50, he rolled the dice again. His resignation helped bring a beleaguered Boris Johnson down.
Thank you all very much.
Giving him a clear shot at the top. But during the 2022 leadership contest, he failed to read the mood of the Conservative membership and, for once, fell short. It gave him pause when he got another chance, just 46 days later.
I am resigning as leader of the Conservative Party.
No, he was definitely unsure. He definitely was thinking, it's been a difficult time, particularly with that leadership campaign. He hadn't ruled it out, but he was in two minds whether to do it or not. And people like me were saying you should do it. You're the right person.
This thing is only going to be a couple of minutes long.
In October 2022, at the age of 42, Rishi Sunak entered 10 Downing Street as the youngest Prime Minister in 2 centuries and the richest in history.
Interview here. Come on.
Richest Prime Minister.
Prime Minister, there's been a lot of focus on your wealth in this campaign. I want to talk to you a bit first about you as a person. When you are wealthier
Damien
than the
Pritchard,
king,
thank you very much.
what do you do day to day to make sure you're still in touch with the kind of struggles ordinary people face?
Well, when I'm out and about talking to people, actually what they talk to me about is the impact of what I'm doing on their lives. And most people got to know me during COVID. That's when I was Chancellor, and I did everything I could to protect people, to help them get
Except for
through
self-employed.
and support their jobs, their livelihoods. And that's why we did the furlough scheme and made sure it worked, and it really did work.
Talking to people is one thing, but what do you do to walk in their shoes?
It's about my actions. I mean, you say, like your question actually interestingly was if you haven't walked in their shoes. During COVID, when the pandemic hit, was I going to lose my job? No. Right? No politician was going to lose their job.
Was I going to lose my job? No!
I was working in a restaurant, I wasn't about to be shut down. I wasn't going to lose my job. That didn't stop me from understanding immediately
I won't lose my job
how
again.
Damaging that pandemic and shutting down the economy and the country was going to be for people's livelihoods, and creating the furlough scheme to support them. I did the right thing for the country, and that's always what I'll do.
But people do want to know that their Prime Minister understands what it's like to be an ordinary voter. Do you go to the supermarket? When was the last time you went to a supermarket?
When I was in Northallerton, probably a few weeks. I'm trying to think, probably a few weeks ago, actually.
Buying your weekly shop?
Well, I don't get to do it on a weekly basis. I wish I had the time.
But were you buying groceries for yourself, or were you just visiting as part of a constituency?
No. I do when I can get there. It's not as often as I would like, but generally I'm working for the most part.
Have you ever gone without something?
Yeah, I mean, my family emigrated here with very little.
Here we go.
And that's how I was raised.
You had to go without Sky TV.
Of hard work.
What did you go without as a child?
We went out with lots of things, right? Because my parents wanted to put everything into our education, and that was a priority.
So what sort of things had to be sacrificed?
Lots of things, right?
Can you give me an example
All
of
sorts of things. Like lots of people, there'll be all sorts of things that I would have wanted as a kid that I couldn't have, right? Famously, Sky TV.
Famously!
So that was something that we never had growing up, actually.
Yeah, actually.
But it was lots of things. But again, that's
Like
my
I said to you earlier,
experience
this
is obviously going to
hardship's
be
gonna win votes.
what my experience was.
tale of
What
woe.
one of my values and how
People
I was
will identify
raised.
with
And I
this.
was raised in a household where hard work was
speaking to
really
me.
important. You had to work very hard.
I too didn't have Sky
and
growing up as a
family
child.
was important. Service to your community
It was a lifestyle choice
important.
to not have
And my
Sky.
parents worked very hard for what
Yeah.
they had, and they wanted their kids to have a better life. And I think that's a good thing. And I think actually, if people do work hard, they should get to
At the time,
enjoy
Sky,
the
£8 a
benefits
month,
of that. It's one of the reasons I
Winchester,
believe in
around
cutting people's
30,000
taxes. And again,
per
I say
year.
the same thing all the time.
Thank
You
you,
can just
Craving
judge me
Beer,
by my
for the super chat.
actions at the end of the day.
Let's talk about the
by his
actions over the
actions.
past 14 years of Conservative
That's
government.
judging by his actions.
A YouGov poll from the beginning of this year found 75% of people.
When he said we
think
didn't have
the
Sky, I
country
think
is
he
in a
meant he
worse
didn't have a
state
controlling interest
than when
in
the
the
Conservatives
company.
came.
That's what he actually meant.
Right. Okay.
I'm working it out. Yeah.
Well, it's been very difficult for the last few years.
Thanks,
That
Craving
must have
Beer.
been hard
It's
for
been
the-
very
for Rishi
difficult.
Sunak
14 years
on the
we're
estate.
talking about, not just a few years.
Well, you have to remember, just a few years ago, the Conservatives won a general election. People thought actually the Conservatives were doing a good job, otherwise we wouldn't have re-elected them. But what's happened in the last few years is we've been hit by two once-in-a-century crises. A pandemic, which we hadn't seen before, and then an energy crisis as Russia invaded Ukraine and everyone's energy bills spiraled, and that's had an enormous impact on everybody.
And it's fair to point out the pandemic, it's fair to point out the war in Ukraine, of course it is. But this malaise and this sense of decline has been going on for far longer than
Tory
that.
decline.
Are people wrong to feel the country is worse than it was in 2010?
But I actually just disagree with you that is what people think when they talk to me about it.
Why are you at
When I look back
19%
over
in the
last
polls
14
then?
years, I am proud of the progress that the Conservative governments over those periods have
What's
have
better
made.
then? What's better now?
I mean, I'll take one example, is
better?
education, because of the reforms that were implemented.
Some children can
English
read
schools
that couldn't
are
read
now
14 years ago.
the best in the UK,
quite
and they've
achievement.
risen in the international rankings by leaps and bounds. Leaps and bounds. And English school children right now are the best readers in the Western world. It should be a source of enormous pride for us. And
Isn't that
and
down
that
to
has
good
done wonders
teachers?
for millions of kids. And what's
I'm not sure that's down
particularly
to him
important
personally,
is
but
that those reforms have benefited children from the most disadvantaged backgrounds the most.
No, they haven't. 1 in 4 children are living in poverty.
No.
Once
When he says
Prime
most
Minister,
disadvantaged
Rishi
backgrounds,
Sunak's
he means
in-trade
children
was
that have grown
piled
up without
high.
controlling
Spiralling
interests.
energy
Aye.
costs, rising inflation, and record NHS waiting lists meant he had no honeymoon period.
The one word I would use to describe Rishi Sunak's
This is Katie
premiership.
Balls again from The Spectator.
Difficult?
After the Liz Truss and Kwasi Kwarteng budget, which had been such a disaster for finances, for the economy, he steadied the ship. That was the most important thing. But the issue for him is the polls haven't moved.
Today, we're announcing an energy bills rebate worth £350.
Sunak was forced yet again to spend big, capping the huge energy bills households and businesses were facing.
Hey Rishi, you're so tight, you make us strike. Hey Rishi! Hey!
His first year in office was also marred with disruptive strikes from NHS staff, rail workers, and even criminal barristers. With polls giving Labour a huge lead at the start of 2023, Sunak knew he had to turn the tide of public opinion. He pinned everything on 5
Did you see him just try and
pledges
stand a bit
voters
taller than
could
everybody
judge him
else
on.
there?
Yeah.
We will
That was
halve
good.
inflation,
He did.
grow the
The people
economy,
watching this
reduce
didn't see that,
debt,
though.
cut waiting
just
lists,
listening.
and stop
They're
the
just
votes.
listening, we can't watch.
Although some were recycled from previous leaders.
Boris Johnson had announced the Rwanda policy to great fanfare alongside his then Home Secretary Priti Patel. Rishi Sunak had a choice. He could have cancelled the Rwanda scheme. I think at that point he would have risked a huge backlash from parts of his party.
We have to stop the boats, and this government will do what must be done.
That's a look at them.
Rwanda was always going to be important to Rishi Sunak and the Conservatives because in some ways
Although he
their
has
main
now lost the
concern, rightly or
Spectator,
wrongly,
let's
was about being outflanked
Because
on
they
the
applied
right.
his own metric.
We all kind of entered Parliament in 2015 full of the joys of spring, and I think we've all got a dose of reality, political reality, which I think every politician gets when they enter the fray. So I think he's probably been hardened on the battlefield.
Fraser Nelson, that's the writer.
But when it comes to battle, Rishi Sunak still has an appetite for risk.
Earlier today, I spoke with His Majesty the King to
It's still
request the
raining.
dissolution of Parliament.
I didn't notice.
The King has granted this request, and we will have a general election on the 4th of July.
After luck initially rained on his parade, there were early pledges, like keeping the state pension tax-free and national service for all 18-year-olds.
I think we've
The
seen
Conservatives and Rishi Sunak have
today.
gone for what I would describe as a maximalist
Worth
policy.
coming back
Let's
from D-Day
chuck
for.
Yeah,
as much
definitely
policy
worth
spaghetti
coming back
at the
from D-Day
wall
for.
and hope
Why are they
that some
telling
of
us his
it
life story?
sticks.
I don't care.
The big problem with that is you can't fatten a pig on market day.
The first election polls showed little improvement for the Conservatives. Then, on June the 3rd, Nigel Farage threatened to make things worse.
I think there's every chance we'll get
Glad you're
more
not
votes
having
than
to
the
see him.
Conservative Party. I
Sorry,
genuinely
have to
do.
hear him.
They are on the verge of total collapse, and it couldn't happen, frankly, to nicer people.
Bollock-faced,
Sunak fought hard to regain momentum with a controversial claim in ITV's first election debate.
There are £2,000 worth of tax rises coming for every working family in this country, and as I said, he's saying to he's going to raise taxes. That's not the start, and that's not the end.
I do need to answer that.
Then came D-Day. Rishi Sunak's last chance to change his fortunes might be the Conservative manifesto released yesterday. The headline pledge was a promise of more tax cuts, along with extra help for home buyers and an annual immigration cap.
Can we just get on to immigration? Your grandparents were immigrants, your wife is an immigrant, you were an immigrant for a while to the US yourself, so you know that immigration can be good for a country. The only reason you want to bring it down is because you're scared of Nigel Farage, isn't it?
No, I've been saying that I want to bring immigration down since the first day I had this job. Because it's too high, because immigration that is too high puts pressure on public services. That's not right. But also illegal migration is simply unfair.
What do you think about Nigel Farage?
At the end of the day,
C-Unit.
One of two people is going to be Prime Minister.
Yeah, but what do you think about Nigel Farage?
Not Nigel Farage.
What do you think about Nigel Farage?
Oh, I've got respect for Nigel, but at the end of the day...
What do you admire about Nigel Farage?
Oh, I think it's right that he's highlighted migration as an issue, because I think it is an issue. And the choice for everybody is a vote for anyone who's not a Conservative candidate is ultimately a vote to put Keir Starmer in office. Now,
yay, let's do that.
If you're someone who cares about migration as an issue and wants to stop the boats, I've got a plan to do that.
How can you make this big thing about migration when your parents were immigrants?
I really don't know him. I think I've met him maybe once.
I don't know him.
See Patel.
I don't know.
Do you feel threatened by him?
No,
don't even know him.
I'm talking to everyone across the country about my plans for this country.
You're not worried he's going to steal votes from the Conservative Party?
At the end of the day, as I said, one of two people is going to be Prime Minister on July 5th. It's either Keir Starmer or me. A vote for anyone who's not a Conservative candidate. It's a vote to put Keir Starmer
He looks
in
tired.
office.
His eyes
are you willing to
bloodshot.
lie?
He looks
in order
really
to stay in
tired.
power?
No.
Doesn't he look tired?
The Labour Party say you're a liar.
Well, people can't
I think
see
it's
this.
pretty desperate stuff. And Keir Starmer and Labour Party obviously very rattled that we've exposed their plans to raise tax on people.
Inside his
and that's what it,
we know
that's
that.
what
He's
it
been crying for
demonstrates.
3 years.
Your claim is dubious. You know it's dubious.
No, I don't.
Briefcase
I think people
wanker.
know that I'm across the detail when it comes to numbers. The Chancellor gave a press conference on this very topic almost a month ago, where he laid out all the workings behind what we were saying, and I'm happy to go through it.
His permanent secretary at the Treasury said, "Do not use this to claim that civil servants have crunched these numbers."
No, that's not right.
That's the letter.
It is.
I can tell you exactly. I'm happy to go through it with you. There are 27 different policies that go into this number.
27 levels of bullshit.
Have been costed independently by Treasury officials. They're all online and people can find them.
They're not
2
independent.
of them come direct from the Labour Party, 3 of them from other public government sources, and 1 of them's from an independent investment bank. That's where all the workings come from. I don't think the right thing to do is to raise people's taxes.
These are all Conservative assumptions, and that's what's wrong with these figures, is you've inputted things into the system in the Treasury that are based on Conservative assumptions, not on Labour Party policy necessarily.
No, that's not. This is the tried and tested way that this has been done
Come on, Paul.
in
Push
all
him. Push him.
elections.
Make him cry.
Will you at least be upfront about the fact that this is based on Conservative advisers putting together the initial input?
No, people can go and read it online. There's a document that was published 3 weeks ago. The Chancellor gave a press conference and answered questions.
And who came up with the ideas to put into that document?
The Labour Party policies.
No.
Let's take one very specific thing that we've announced. If I'm re-elected, we will raise the personal allowance for pensioners and ensure that the state pension is never going to be subject to income tax. We're calling it the triple lot plus. Now, Labour have not matched that pledge. So there's a very clear difference at this election, because pensioners for the first time in British history will be paying tax on the state pension under a Labour government. And that is
already paid tax
a big change.
Boris Johnson said in July 2019, this is 5 years ago now, we will fix the crisis in social care. Is it fixed?
So what we did immediately after I became Prime Minister was provide about £8.5 billion of funding for social care and the NHS. The areas that we focused on were the workforce, who do an incredible job. Over 1 million people
They do an incredible job.
And what they've always said to me is that what they wanted was obviously decent pay, and the national living wage has now been rising at quite a healthy rate over the last couple of years. And if you talk to anybody who works, particularly
you try
in
living on it,
hospitals
mate.
and in social care, they will say, if we can improve that, making it easier for people to leave hospitals and come back to their families.
He's thinking,
I
wish I stayed in France.
Not only is it better for them,
should have stayed in Normandy.
and
This ain't
their
fun.
care and their recovery, it also
ITV
helps
would
us
give me an easy
improve
ride.
waiting times in hospitals.
Yeah, we've seen that for ourselves actually on the Tonight programme, and we would agree with you on that point. That is vital, but 2.6 million people in Britain are still waiting for care. There are 152,000 unfilled vacancies in the care sector. 500 care homes closed last year.
Across social care and the health service, it is going to take time to recover from the damage of the pandemic. And what I can tell you is right now there's more money going into the NHS and social care than ever before.
So what's the plan now to fix social care?
Well, it's working on the things that I mentioned to you.
A bit of extra money.
We've got more money going into the system, but then how we use it is important. So some of it is just going in to build and provide
how much Labour's plan will cost.
Yeah. So sticking plaster there, really. You just have
One
of many
you were going to increase national insurance contributions by 1.25 percentage points. One of your successors scrapped that plan. Why haven't you been bold enough to reintroduce it?
Because this is not the right moment to do that, because we actually have challenges that we need to address with the cost of living. And that was how you started this entire interview, was asking about the cost of living and the challenges people are facing. So I don't think it's the right thing, Paul, to put up people's taxes. If that's what you think the right answer is.
I'm not saying that's the right answer, I'm just saying you haven't done anything to improve the crisis in social care.
Well, if the answer is putting up people's taxes, I don't think that's the right thing to do.
Well, what is the right thing to do? Where's your plan?
We're putting more people into social care, we're training them, giving them career development, we're also making sure discharge is improved, and those are the right things to focus on.
Your life story is one of extraordinary success, Prime Minister, and that's something to be proud of. But if you lose this election, it will be arguably your biggest ever failure. How do you think you're going to cope with that?
I'm focused on winning this election.
I knew you'd say that, but there's a big chance you might lose it. How are you going to cope with that?
Well, I have a very loving family. They're very supportive to me, and throughout my life, you don't know every ins and outs of my entire life. Whenever I've had difficult times, my family are always there for me.
He's got his 120 million.
That's not what I'm focused on.
Paul Brand is loving this. You see the
as
smile on
many
his
people
face
as
when he's asking that
possible
question.
in order to win this election. At the end of the day, if you're working as hard as you can, you're doing what you believe is right, and you can look yourself in the mirror every night and sleep with a clear conscience, and that's what I try and do. People are always going to have their opinions, but I'm working as hard as I can, trying to make life better for people, and I'm doing what I believe is right for this country in the long term. And my track record shows I'm prepared to do that even when it's not easy. For all the decisions I've made, when I said actually we can't afford to spend as much as we do on foreign aid because we've got some priorities here at home right now that we need to deal with.
I'm sure that was a really difficult decision for a racist party to make.
And again, that's the type of person I am. I'm prepared to do what I think is right for our country, even if it's not easy, even if people are going to criticise me. But I think that's the type of leadership that our country needs.
Prime Minister, thank you.
Thank you very much.
No.
That's it for tonight's programme. If you want to continue the conversation, you can join in using the hashtag ITVTonight on X or Twitter, as well as visiting our Facebook and Instagram pages. And our website,
We've got 4 minutes left of the show.
/tonight.
You only asked him about 7
good
questions.
Evening, and thank you for watching.
Right, shut up. Okay, right, I've turned that off. So we've got a leadership debate with Sunak and Starmer, and I have actually got that queued up. Do not worry. Do not fret. We do have that actually queued up for coming up in a moment on the Sky Vision. Oh no! I pressed the wrong button and it made that bling noise. Don't like it when it does that. Just to prove that I'm not full of shit. Here you go. This is. See, look. This is Sky News. We can see it. We can hear it. Well, I haven't got the sound on, but if you have the sound
I can't hear
on,
a thing.
Well, I haven't put the sound on yet.
Well, put it up. I want to hear
John
John Craig.
Started yet.
And it's the lovely Sophie
but I've set up another stream for that, so we have to say goodbye to everyone here. But don't worry, keep watching, and you will automatically be redirected to the new stream that's about to start in about 30 seconds' time.
How exciting!
We're going to be talking about the battle for number 10.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone. See you.
Goodbye.
Thanks for the super chats. I love you.